Hello there, I'm Hitavi, and in this video I'm going to be attempting to survive 100 days in hardcore Minecraft with dragons. My goal is to make it to 100 days in a world with dragons and hopefully get a dragon of my own. Before we get into the video, I'd just like to thank you all for the support on my last 100 days video, as that video tripled the size of my channel, and I'd also just like to ask you to consider subscribing if you end up liking the video. Now that that's all out of the way, let's get into the video. Starting out on day 1, I spawned in a forest, got some of the early game essentials like wood and stone, got some stone tools, then found a giant dragon skeleton just lying in the middle of the desert and harvested it for some dragon bones and a dragon skull. Not long after, I found a village nearby and settled in a scribe's house, which is a new villager type that this mod adds to the game, and then made myself a bed so I wouldn't get caught out in the night, organized my inventory by putting some of my stuff into a chest, trapped the scribe in my house using a trapdoor so I could use him later, killed an iron golem for a bit of iron, turned the scribe into a fletcher so I could use him to get some easy emeralds, and then went to sleep to skip the night to day 2. I woke up the next morning on day 2 and traded with the Fletcher a bit, I think I'll call him Flynn, went exploring and found an abandoned mine shaft and a cave and mined coal for a bit in them, and then went back home and slept. I didn't do much on day 2. On the actual day 2, I was doing a lot of tree farming because I wanted to trade with the villagers to get myself some diamond tools and armor. But while I was evening out the terrain, I was rudely interrupted by a creeper who took over half my health, but after healing it off I just went back to the wood grind. I decided I want as many ways of getting emeralds as possible, so I made a sugarcane farm so I could trade paper to the cartographers as well. After that, I went to the desert because I wanted to tame a hippogriff, and in order to tame a hippogriff, you need rabbit's feet. So I killed some rabbits for their sweet, sweet feet, but unfortunately had no luck with the drops, so when it got dark, I just went back to the village and slept. On day 3, I killed some more rabbits, but still with no luck. Tried to get some more coal and iron by caving, but only found that all the caves were tiny and ended quickly, expanded the sugarcane farm, and then played around a bit with the bestiary lectern, and found out I could upgrade my bestiary with it if I had manuscripts, which I could use to upgrade my bestiary to include more information about some of the creatures from the mod. On day 4, I was back at it again, killing rabbits, even the babies. No mercy! But unfortunately still no luck on getting their feet. And when I went back to the village, I killed an iron golem that spawned because I have basically no iron, stole from my own people, and then went out to try caving again and got a bit more iron and coal before sleeping under the stars in a dark, dry cave. On day 5, I trapped some more villagers and houses, crafted a blast furnace to get an armorer, then I harvested some more sugarcane so I could get some more emeralds to level them up. The next day on day 6, I made some iron axes to farm wood more efficiently, chopped down some trees for a while and expanded the sugarcane farm, got tons of emerald stonks from Flynn, and then began to use those emeralds to level up the armorer. On day 7, I got a second Fletcher to make getting emeralds easier, continued chopping wood, leveled up my armor until he would sell me diamond boots and leggings, chopped down trees until I had enough emeralds for the boots, and then bought diamond boots, and then planted some more sugarcane before I went to sleep. On day 8, I spent the entire day farming wood and expanding the sugarcane farm until finally at the end I had enough emeralds to get myself diamond leggings and then unlock the diamond chestplate and helmet. On day 9, after even more farming and trading with the Fletchers and cartographer, I had enough emeralds for a diamond chestplate and almost enough emeralds for a diamond helmet. This is taking a long time, but hopefully it will be worth it. On day 10, after a little bit more farming, I finally got those last few emeralds I needed to get myself a full set of diamond armor, so I put it all on and admired it in front of my house. I decided that the next thing I should do after getting full diamond armor was get some diamond tools, so I made a smithing table and put it next to an unemployed villager so he'd become a toolsmith. And then I began trading with him to try to work him up to trading me diamond tools. After a little while though, trading him emeralds for stone tools really wasn't making much progress, so if I wanted to level him up quickly, I was gonna need to trade him iron. So I went to a nearby ravine to mine for iron. Unfortunately though, there was pretty much nothing in that ravine, and even though I spent all day in there, I only came out with 7 iron. On day 11, I decided to go back into the ravine though and see if I missed any iron, and I did end up finding another 6 iron ore, still not very good for an entire ravine though. So I smelted the iron ore down and sold it to the toolsmith until he leveled up, and would now sell me enchanted iron tools. This would be pretty helpful since I'm having trouble finding iron, and one of those was an axe so I could use it to help me farm wood for more emeralds, and I decided I should try to get a totem of undying as soon as possible, so I made another cartographer since the first one was only selling Ocean Explorer maps. At the time, I didn't realize this, but all cartographers sell both Ocean and Woodland Explorer maps, but you have to level them up more for the Woodland Explorer maps. Had I realized this, I wouldn't have wasted so much time making random villagers cartographers and leveling them up, and could have just traded with the first first one. But unfortunately my brain isn't large, and it never occurred to me to Google it to confirm I was doing it right until like day 40 or something. But after that fiasco, I just continued farming and leveling up the toolsmith. And on day 12, I continued doing the same thing until finally the toolsmith leveled up and would sell me diamond shovels. Unfortunately, the best way I have of leveling him up is still just buying iron tools from him, so this still isn't going to go extremely quickly, but at least we're almost there. Day 13 I just did more of the same, but on day 14 I finally traded with the toolsmith enough that he would sell me diamond pickaxes which had Fortune 3 on them. That's insane. They were pretty expensive, but luckily I had plenty of ways of getting emeralds, and I decided to organize my tree farm a bit more by making a simple oak tree farm that makes sure they don't grow too big and they grow close together so they're all easy to harvest. Luckily I had a ton of saplings from all the tree farming I was doing, so actually I had enough to fill it in completely, which is usually hard to do when starting a tree farm like this. On day 15, after a little bit more farming and trading, I finally had enough emeralds to get myself a Fortune 3 pickaxe from the toolsmith. This is going to be a huge help, and now that I have diamond tools and full diamond armor, I think I'm ready to start venturing out a little bit more and look for some dragons to kill. This wasn't my first attempt at this challenge, however, and I knew that if I wanted to kill a dragon, I was going to need to be armed to the teeth. You see, that clip you saw of me fighting a big green dragon in the beginning of the video isn't actually part of this 100 days attempt. That was actually part of my first attempt, which lasted 36 days, and on day 36, I thought I was ready to fight a dragon. I knew that I was undergeared, but I thought that if I dug a hole and shot at it and hit it from inside, I could take it down relatively safely. I knew dragons were able to break most blocks, but what I didn't realize was just how destructive they were. So when I was fighting it, I was digging underground to try to get away, but it just kept launching fireballs and breaking the ground around me, preventing me from getting away and eventually killing me. Because of this, it seemed like it would be nearly impossible to kill a dragon without endgame gear, but then I had an idea. A very cheap and cheesy idea that just might work. My idea was to gather a bunch of obsidian and make a little obsidian fort that I could hide in and swipe at and shoot the dragon from while staying safe myself. I was curious to see if this actually worked, so I tested it in a creative world, and sure enough it did work. The one drawback though is that you have to build the fort without getting killed by the dragon in the first place, and you can't just build it ahead of time, because if the dragon is too far away, then you have to get too far from the fort to get its attention, and then you're a sitting duck. But if you build it while the dragon is attacking you and you take too long, then the dragon could just kill you. So although this strategy does have the potential to work, it's definitely not foolproof, and there is still a good chance that I could end up dying. But I figured this was the best shot I had, so I spent day 15 and 16 gathering nearly a stack and a half of obsidian. After gathering the obsidian, I spent the rest of day 16 making some final preparations for fighting a dragon. Then, on day 17, I was finally going out to find a dragon to fight, but while traveling, I found another dangerous lizard-like creature that wanted to kill me. A cockatrice. A cockatrice is basically like a half-lizard, half-chicken monster that kills you by staring at you, which gives you a very strong withering effect. I tried to fight it when it came after me, but these things are no joke. It quickly did a lot of damage to me, and I realized that I had to run, but it chased after me and wouldn't give up. Eventually, after running for a while, it seemed to lose interest, so I could go back to the main task at hand, finding a dragon. And soon after, that's just what happened. I was running through the desert, and all I saw was a big large dragon skeleton. But then I saw a big fire dragon emerge from behind it, and I was terrified. I wasted no time getting the obsidian bunker up, but before I could even finish it, the dragon was spewing fire at me, setting me on fire and causing me to panic. Luckily, I managed to keep my composure and finished building my defenses, and then carved out a hole in the wall so I could strike back. Unfortunately though, while putting the fire out, the dragon somehow managed to destroy my water, which meant that if it lights me on fire again, I won't have a way of putting myself out, and every time I catch on fire, I'll lose a massive amount of health. The dragon was now right next to my bunker and had parts of its wings poking through, so I began to swipe at it and managed to connect with a few hits. But it definitely didn't like this, and it responded by shooting fire everywhere, but luckily my bunker held up strong and I was completely safe inside. It started sticking its head through, and now I was getting a ton of hits off on it and I was doing massive damage. Eventually though, as it got really dark, the dragon seemed to have retreated, so I looked outside using F5 to see where it went, but it was nowhere to be found, so I decided to take this as an opportunity to sleep so that I could fight it in the daylight again, so it would be easier to see. When I woke up on day 18 and looked around to try to spot the dragon, I eventually noticed it off in the distance. Before I could continue the fight, however, I was attacked by a husk and a deathworm. The husk went down pretty easily, but the deathworm was kind of a pain to fight. It wasn't dangerous or scary, just annoying. Eventually though, I did manage to kill it, and then tried to shoot at the dragon to get its attention. Unfortunately, the dragon managed to make its way over to a village, so now getting it to come back to me was very difficult. I decided to make a break for it and run over to try to set up another bunker while it was distracted with the villagers, and managed to get the whole thing built without being attacked. After getting the bunker set up, I shot at the dragon to get its attention, and then ran back to the bunker for dear life. Burning and badly damaged, I barely made it back alive, and because I lost my water, I nearly burned to death. Luckily though, I managed to heal just enough from eating bread, and then went back on the offensive. Unfortunately though, the ADHD dragon once again lost interest and went off to do something else. So I had to try to get its attention again, and once again, it went too far away to shoot at, so I would have to get closer to it. I wanted to play it safe, but I didn't want to have to build another bunker, so I dug down and dug a tunnel from under my bunker, and then came out and shot the dragon, and then ran through the tunnel back to the bunker as fast as I could. This ended up kind of working, but I had to come out and shoot it again to get it to come all the way over to me, and I went out to shoot it again and missed, but then suddenly it came straight at me and picked me up and I had a heart attack. Luckily though, I was prepared for this and instantly pressed shift to escape it, and then got back to my bunker, continued swiping away at it, best from the safety of my bunker. After getting many more hits in on it, it flew away again and I had to leave the safety of the obsidian base to get its attention. But this time it wasn't so easy. It was behind a bunch of trees, so shooting it was very hard and it seemed to be moving away. Eventually, out of nowhere, it turned around though and began shooting fire at me. It did a lot of damage to me, but luckily I managed to make it back to the bunker with half health left, and the dragon came back for another round. We both knew though that this would be the final round. We were both injured and exhausted from the long battle, and it won't go on any longer. It ends here. I could hear the dragon right outside, so I healed a bit more, and then got my sword out to try to finish the dragon off. It poked its head through, making a few final attempts to get me, but then with a few more hits, I had killed the dragon. I emerged from my bunker and saw the beast's lifeless body and couldn't believe that I had managed to take this thing down. I harvested its body because I wanted to get some scales so I could craft dragon scale armor to make these fights more manageable in the future, but when I harvested its body, all it gave me was its flesh and a heart. Gotta love my luck. After that, I just disassembled my bunker and then went back home to drop my stuff off. I was quite far away though, so my journey home went on into day 19. And as I was going home, I spotted a pillager raid party and killed the captain for the bad omen effect. This meant that now I had a chance of getting myself a totem of undying and a little insurance in case things go bad. I made it home on the night of day 19 and slept so that I could see the pillagers when I fight them. When I woke up on day 20, I put some of the stuff I got from my adventure away and then began fighting the raid. Taking care of the pillagers was pretty easy, and even on wave 2 when vindicators were added, it didn't get too much harder. However, I did still end up having a close call fighting the last vindicator. Things got a bit harder on round 3, and when it started I had trouble finding the raiders, but when I finally did, a ravager managed to sneak up on me and nearly killed me. I ran away and tried to tower up to shoot it safely, but I underestimated its reach and it hit me off and brought me down to half a heart. After that, I didn't make the same mistake twice though, and I towered up 5 blocks and shot at it until it was gone. After that, I finished off the rest of the wave relatively easily and managed to do wave 4 pretty smoothly as well. However, I hadn't even come close to seeing the worst of it, because the raid continued into day 21, and it was then that the evokers joined in. They're both the best and worst part of the raid, because they're pretty much the main reason for doing it, because they drop totems of undying, but they're also the most dangerous raiders because they spawn vexes, which can fly, do tons of damage, are small and really hard to hit, and can even go through walls like ghosts. Luckily, I did manage to take care of the Vindicator pretty quickly, but not before he summoned a bunch of Vexes. Since he was gone, no more could spawn at least, and after a little while, these ones will die on their own, so it's just a matter of waiting and staying alive now. I managed to grab the totem and equip it in my offhand, which felt really good and relieving, and slowly picked off the rest of the raiders, leaving just one Vindicator left because I wasn't sure if there was more waves or not, so I just locked it in a boat and waited for the raid to end. After all that was over, I built a nether portal on my roof to check out the nether quickly, and I got a pretty bad spawn, so after protecting the portal with cobblestone, I just went back to the overworld right away. On day 22, I went out to try to kill another dragon, and as I was traveling, I passed a lava pool, so I turned it into obsidian and collected a bit more to help me fight a dragon, and while I was exploring, I came across a village, and looted the scribes' houses. Not much noteworthy loot apart from the tons of books I got that'll help me enchant in the future. I left the village on day 23, and while traveling, I came across a graveyard, which I was very excited about because when I was testing out this mod to make sure everything was working before starting this 100 days, one of the first modded items that popped out to me was the Phantasmal Blade, which is a legendary weapon this mod adds that does 11 damage and has an attack speed of 3 and launches ghostly swords when you attack with it. I wasn't actually quite sure how to get it, but I figured it had something to do with ghosts. So after googling it real quick, I found out that you need to get a phantasmal ingot and combine it with a dragon bone sword on a smithing table to get a phantasmal blade. Phantasmal ingots have a drop chance of 2.5% from ghosts, so I knew I would have to kill a lot of ghosts to get one. So that's what I did for all of day 23, and day 24, and day 25. Until finally I was wondering what was going on since I killed a ton of ghosts, and not only didn't I get any phantasmal ingots, but of all the ghosts I killed, the only drop I got was 1 ectoplasm. Well, after googling it, I found out that ghosts only drop loot when they spawn from graveyard soil, and not from cursed chests like I had been doing. Which is why the only one that dropped anything was the one that spawned in as I was going to sleep, and it was dark enough for it to spawn. Well, that was a huge waste of 2.5 days, so I decided to just collect the graveyard soil and go home so I could do this right another time. Just to give you an idea of how long I was doing this, I honestly have no idea how many ghosts I killed. I'm not going to bother to go back and check, but it was a ton, believe me, I was constantly spawning them in. And somehow I was doing it for 2.5 days before it occurred to me to Google it. Wow. Why do I never think to Google these things? I guess I've learned for the next 100 days, I guess. On day 26, I was still making my way home, and while running through the savannah, I encountered some cockatrices, and they immediately began withering me in their stare. I tried to shoot back at them, but because of the nausea they caused, it's nearly impossible to aim, so I just opted to run away and heal and try to fight them up close so they couldn't wither me from afar. But when I tried to fight them with my axe, I was barely able to land any hits, and they were doing massive damage. So I just decided to run away and not risk losing my totem. However, the cockatrices were extremely persistent and followed me all the way back to the village. So I hid in the house, healed, and then tried to take them out one by one by making holes in the house and shooting them through them. And it worked for the first one, but the second one actually managed to get into the house from the hole and got me down to half a heart before I was able to kill it. Glad I was able to stay calm and land my hits, or else this could have ended really badly. When I got home, I crafted a dragon bone sword since it's not only a good weapon itself, but can be made into even better weapons in this mod. And I wanted to enchant it, but first I would need diamonds for the enchantment table and lapis for the enchanting, so I began digging down to Y11 to make a strip mine. When I got down to Y11, I dug out some tunnels, and in one of them I put down some graveyard soil in a dark room so that it could hopefully spawn some ghosts in and I could kill them to hopefully get a phantasmal ingot. Well, this continued on into day 27, and at one point when I came up to drop off resources from the mine, I was attacked by a cockatrice. These things are just vicious. Luckily, it just got caught in the boat I had the Vindicator in, so I could get close enough to kill it fairly easily. I went back down to the mines and eventually found some diamonds. With Fortune 3, I got 5 diamonds from 4 ores. That's just... well, on the bright side, there's not much use for diamonds in this mod, so all I need now is lapis, and that's usually pretty easy to get, right? On day 28, I made my enchantment table and surrounded it with bookshelves until I had access to level 30 enchants. Now all that's left to do is get that lapis, and that can't be too hard, right? Well, when I went down to the mine and kept mining, I actually ended up finding a second diamond vein before I even found 1 lapis. Not sure if this is good luck or bad luck, but I just want lapis, man. Luckily I did eventually find lapis. Unfortunately it was just a 2 vein though, but for now this will do. I went back up to enchant, and the first thing I did was enchant a dragon bone bow, hoping to get power and infinity since dragon bone arrows are expensive without a wither farm, but all I got was Unbreaking 3 unfortunately, so I'm gonna have to try again on that one. Next I enchanted the dragon bone sword and I got sharpness 4, which is pretty good. Kinda sucks that it got no extra enchants, but sharpness 4 is still pretty good on its own. I wanted to try for better enchants on the dragon bone bow, so I made a regular bow to preview the enchantments, and it got power 4's level 30 enchantment, although as I'll find out later, dragon bone tools enchants aren't the same as vanilla tools enchants, so this was actually pointless. But after seeing that, I decided to make up a grindstone, which I can never remember the recipe for, and then unenchant the dragon bone bow so I can enchant it again, and when I enchanted it, it ended up getting power 4 and Unbreaking 3, which is definitely better, but I'm gonna need infinity before I can actually use it. At this point I was trying to get looting 3 to make getting a phantasmal ingot easier, although I'm not sure if looting actually affects modded legendary drops, but that didn't stop me, so I kept re-rolling enchantments and checking what I could get on swords and books, until finally I saw sharpness 4 on the sword. So I went out and killed a cockatrice for more wither bones, made another dragon bone sword, and then put the dragon bone sword on the enchantment table and saw that it said looting 3, which although not what I thought I was going to get since it wasn't what the stone sword said, it was probably the best thing I could have gotten, so I went to the nether to mine quartz for XP because honestly this is the best way to farm it without an XP farm, and then came home, went to sleep, and then woke up on day 30 and went to enchant the sword. However, when I went to get the lapis, it turned out there was none left, and totally not some in one of the chests that I was too blind to see, so I dug down to my strip mines, put some water going down to make it easier to go up and down, and then mined for lapis. This took a really long time because not only was I just super unlucky, but also my diamond pickaxe was on really low durability, and I wanted to save it for when I find lapis, so I have to use an iron pickaxe to mine. No luck mining on day 30, so I went up to sleep, but I got attacked by some ghosts because of the graveyard soil I put down, which really just ended up being more of an annoyance than anything. Anyways, when I woke up on day 31, I needed more iron picks because mine broke and I wasn't expecting to need multiple, and somehow I still missed the 4 lapis right in front of me, so good job Itavi. But anyways, I went back down and would you look at that, no lapis. I did manage to find like 3 or 4 veins of diamond, but I couldn't even mine them because my Fortune 3 pick only had like 3 durability. This continued on onto day 32 since I still had no luck with finding lapis and I had to make even more iron pickaxes, but when I was getting the stuff for them in my chests, I finally noticed the 4 lapis staring right at me and enchanted my sword with looting 3. Really? Good job, Hitavi. As far as extra enchants go, I did end up getting Smite 5 on top of the looting 3, but that's actually bad since I want sharpness, and having Smite on the sword is gonna mean it's more expensive to combine with the other one, but it's not that bad. So I make an anvil and combine them for 15 levels, and after that I decided to take out my new sword and try and find a dragon to kill with it. I ran through the desert for a while and found a village eventually, but there was nothing noteworthy there, so I went on exploring. I didn't find any dragons, but on the bright side, I did get a foot, so I got that going for me. I started out day 33 by going home, making my way downtown, walking fast, faces past. Damn it, now I'm homebound. Anyway, I made my way back home and I wanted to get infinity on my dragon bone bow so I could actually use it, but since I'm out of lapis, I'm gonna need to go back to mining to get more. This is gonna suck. Luckily this time it wasn't too bad. I mined for a little over 5 minutes and eventually found a ravine that had exposed lapis, so I mined it using the last durability on my fortune pick, and then went back home with nearly a stack of lapis. And since I broke my diamond pick, I decided it would be good to get an upgrade and make a dragon bone pickaxe, but in order to make one, I would need another wither bone since I only had one, so I went out that night with my looting 3 sword to try to find some cockatrices to kill. On day 34, I was still out looking for cockatrices, and eventually I found one by itself, but unlike before, I had an actually good weapon this time, so I waited for it to come to me and then killed it with my sword. When it died, it ended up dropping a placeable cockatrice skull, which is pretty cool. I must have felt pretty cocky at the time, no pun intended, because when I encountered another cockatrice, I ran in guns blazing and ended up getting my ass handed to me because I kept hitting the tall grass when trying to hit it. So I ended up having to run away for a while and heal first to finish it off. But when I turned around to fight it, there was now 2 of them. Eventually though, by repeating the same strategy, I managed to pick them off one by one and ended up with 6 wither bones, more than enough. So I returned home and crafted up a dragon bone pickaxe and put it in the enchantment table to see what I could get. And when I saw efficiency 4, I immediately knew I needed to get that since it would be a massive help for getting obsidian to help me fight dragons. So I went to the nether and mined quartz for XP. And then came home on day 35 at level 30 and enchanted my dragon bone pickaxe and ended up getting efficiency 4, fortune 3, and unbreaking 3. Really happy about that. At this point I figured that I'm decently geared up and I think I'm about ready to fight another dragon, so I tamed a horse and then began traveling. Until eventually on day 36 when I came across a fire dragon terrorizing a desert village and the dragon quickly saw me and started coming for me, so I immediately prepared to build an obsidian box to keep myself safe, but when I placed the first block all the sand below me collapsed and I fell into a cave. Luckily though the dragon lost interest in me since I was in the cave, so I had time to get out and build up the bunker while it was attacking the village. So I built up my bunker and then began shooting at the dragon to get its attention. I had to get quite far from my bunker in order to actually hit the dragon, but luckily I managed to make it back without being hit. This dragon was much more cooperative than the previous one, as when I brought it over it just kept walking towards me and eventually just kept its face shoved in the bunker for so long that I managed to kill it before it even flew away once or hit me at all. Definitely a much appreciated break after that first dragon fight, although if things didn't go this smooth it wouldn't have been too bad at least since I have a totem now. I decided that I wanted to get some dragon blood from this one, so I made a furnace, smelted some sand, made some bottles, and then collected the blood. Unfortunately, even though I didn't harvest the whole dragon using bottles, I still ended up getting no scales again, so that's pretty unlucky. I guess if I want that dragon scale armor, I'm gonna need to kill another dragon. I woke up on day 37 by the village and mined up my bunker to get the obsidian back, then made my way back home. But while traveling home, I found a graveyard, so I decided to loot it and take all the graveyard soil to help me get a phantasmal blade in the future. Another thing I found while making my way home was another fire dragon, so I set up another obsidian bunker and began shooting at it to get its attention, and eventually began swiping away at it from the safety of my bunker. Honestly, if not for these obsidian boxes, I would have died a long time ago. Eventually though, the dragon seemed to just stop attacking, I guess because it was night and it went to sleep, so I took the opportunity to sleep myself so I could fight it in daylight. I woke up on day 38 and checked to see where the dragon was and found that it was sleeping alarmingly close to me, but when it woke up, it seemed fixed on something else, so I tried shooting it to get its attention. Then when it came back towards me, I immediately jumped back in the bunker and continued attacking it until once again it lost interest. So as usual, I got out and got its attention, then got back to the bunker and continued chipping away at its health. Luckily, this was the last time I would have to get its attention, since after that it just stayed next to the bunker until I finally managed to kill it. And when I looted it, I ended up getting 21 dragon scales, which is just barely not enough for a full set of dragon scale armor. And it made me really annoyed now that the other two dragons didn't drop any scales, since the flesh that they drop is basically useless. So after that, I disassembled the bunker, looted the dragon nest, and then got on my horse and went on my way. I found a wide open area, which I figured would be good to use to farm ghosts at night, so while I waited for it to get dark, I just killed rabbits and managed to get another foot, and then set up the graveyard soil so that the ghost would spawn. Eventually, when it got dark enough, ghosts began to spawn, and I spent a very long time farming ghosts, but at one point, when I was being a bit less careful, I did something stupid, and then this happened.
Oh no!
Now, I know it is kinda my fault for not killing the spider as it just got free hits on me, but I mean, that was kinda BS since I put down the water to try to get away and then it just didn't flow down. I've looked at this over and over to see why that happened and there was no reason, it was just lag. There was no hole the water was flowing into stopping it from coming down to me, the game just hates me so it did that and then my totem popped to the ghost. Oh, it's not over yet though. The ghost was still alive and I'm not doing too great right now, and as I tried to get into a more open area to fight it, I ran into a creeper and it blew up before I could kill it, getting me down to 2 hearts and nearly killing me. Now I'm in big trouble. I'm on 2 hearts being hunted by something I can't see that can phase in and out of walls and attack me at any moment. Not good. Luckily though, when I placed my water and then picked it up, it ended up updating some floating sand above, causing water from a pond above to flow down, so I managed to swim out of the ravine and get back to full health thanks to regen from the totem. But at this point I just felt completely defeated. I made a careless mistake and now I lost my only totem and I can die at any point now, vulnerable as ever, and I didn't even get anything to show for it. Well, that wasn't until I killed this green ghost right as the sun was beginning to come up and I finally got a phantasmal ingot. Not sure if it was worth losing the totem for since it is harder to get the phantasmal ingot, but a totem is certainly more useful in hardcore. I guess I could try to get another totem sometime soon. Just glad I made it out of there alive because man, between the spider and the ghost attacking me and the creeper explosion, I thought I was dead for sure. On the morning of day 39, I mined up my graveyard soil, then got back on my horse and made my way back home. When I got back home, I put the horse in a pen with the cows and put all the extra stuff I got in chests. Then excitedly ran over to the small shack with the smithing table and used the phantasmal ingot with the dragon bone sword on the smithing table to get myself a phantasmal blade. This weapon is absolutely amazing. With 3 attack speed and 13.5 attack damage with sharpness 4, this is going to be my best weapon by far, and because it's made the same way netherite tools are made with netherite ingots, I even get to keep the enchantments. So it had looting 3 and sharpness 4 still. On top of all that, it also has this awesome bonus effect where it shoots these ghost swords out that do 5 damage whenever you attack, which can even travel through blocks. Even the name is so cool, definitely not going to rename it. What an amazing weapon. I also made a dragon bone axe and enchanted it with Unbreaking 3 on the enchantment table and managed to get efficiency 4 and fortune 3 as added enchants too, very happy about that as well. I wanted infinity on my dragon bone bow, so I made another dragon bone bow which could get infinity as a level 30 enchant. But what I don't understand is why I don't just use the infinity book I have. I'm not exactly sure when I got this since some of my recording for day 36 cut out, and that was when I first noticed I had it, but I guess it doesn't even matter because for whatever reason I don't end up using it here. Anyway, for the rest of day 39 I was just running around the savannah, not sure why though. Maybe I wanted to test the phantasmal blade out on some cockatrices or a dragon? I don't know. I was still just running through the savannah on day 40 and eventually found a village. However, there was also a cockatrice there and it attacked me and ended up getting me pretty low. I hate tall grass, man. It's so annoying to fight with. After that I ducked inside of a house, healed a bit more, then finished off the cockatrice. Another thing that the phantasmal blade is also really used for is killing rabbits, since I can just use the ghost sword projectile to kill them, which doesn't even use up durability. This thing is insane. It's also useful for killing deathworms, although that might just be because they suck. Eventually I made my way back home, crafted up some dragon bone arrows, then went to sleep. When I woke up on day 41, I finally used the infinity book on my dragon bone bow. I have no idea why it took me this long, but at least I did it eventually. So now I have a power 4 Unbreaking 3 infinity dragon bone bow. This thing right here is probably the most overpowered thing in the mod. Just wait and see how powerful it ends up being when I start to use it against stronger creatures. At this point I figured the best thing to do now would be to get another totem, so I got a bunch of paper and headed off to the desert village to do some trading for a woodland mansion map. But if you remember what I said on day 11, I'm stupid, and I didn't realize that cartographers sell both ocean monument maps and woodland mansion maps, and I thought it was just one or the other, so instead of leveling one up more than once to get the woodland mansion map, I just kept making new cartographers, not realizing that the first explorer map trade will always be for an ocean monument. This went on into day 42 and I used up all the villagers in the desert village, so I headed to the savannah village from a few days ago to begin trading with them. And eventually it finally occurred to me to Google what trade you get woodland mansion maps from cartographers, and after realizing how much of an idiot I was, I began leveling one up more than once to get a woodland mansion map. One thing about them that is annoying though is that they need compasses to be traded to them with emeralds in order to trade you an explorer map, so I had to dig down for iron and redstone to make one. I wasn't recording at this point because I spent so much time tabbed out on Google, but I went down below the village and mined for a bit and couldn't find any redstone. But you know what I did find? Lapis! Because of course I did! Anyways, after having a meltdown over my awful luck, I eventually got the redstone. After that, I came back up on day 43 and traded with a cartographer to get a woodland explorer map, and then I took my horse to go find the mansion. The map was leading me in the direction of my house, so at least I could stop home and drop off some extra stuff first. But before I got home, I ran into a dragon. However, thanks to all the new weapons I got recently, I was able to kill the dragon really quick. So after harvesting its body and then taking a quick nap, I was back on the road on day 44. While traveling, I wasn't being very careful though, and ended up falling into a ravine on my horse. But luckily, I know a pretty good trick for getting horses out of ravines, and I just wanted to include this here to help any of you in case you have the same problem sometime when you're playing Minecraft, because although it doesn't happen very much, it's definitely very annoying when it does happen to you. Basically, just get a bunch of blocks and then look down while on the horse, tap space so you don't jump too high, and then place a block below you, and just keep doing this until you're at the top. Anyways, with that minor inconvenience out of the way, I made my way back home, dropped off some stuff, and then set out on the horse to try to find the woodland mansion. I was on the road on day 45 and ended up coming up on a jungle, which is a very cool biome in my opinion, and it's always great to see them since they're so rare. The jungle may seem like an annoying biome to navigate a horse through, but compared to smaller forests, it's actually much better. One thing about jungles that's very cool in this mod is a specific type of creature that spawns there known as amphitheres. Amphitheres are basically like big birds with no legs that fly around the jungle, and in order to tame them, you have to shoot them out of the sky with an arrow and then climb on their back and survive them trying to bite you off long enough for them to be broken, and then they'll be tamed to you. This is definitely easier said than done though, because pretty much all aspects of taming them are difficult. Shooting them is difficult since they fly so high up and have such quick unpredictable movements. Catching up to them once they're on the ground is difficult because of how fast they are, and trying to break them is difficult too and extremely risky because they can do quite a lot of damage. I decided that this would be a fantastic first flyer though if I could manage to pull it off, so I grabbed the saddle off my horse and left him to go try to tame an amphithere. After doing this though, suddenly I couldn't find any amphitheres, so I went back to the horse, resaddled it, and then kept going on my way. At the end of day 45, as I reached the end of the jungle and got in my bed to go to sleep, I noticed an amphithere flying high in the sky. So when I woke up on day 46, I went back into the jungle to try and track it down and tame it. I got off the horse and climbed up some trees to try to get a good shot on one, but it was just too fast and I couldn't manage to hit it, so I tried to look for more, hopefully one closer to the ground. Lucky for me, I did eventually find one like that, but right as I was about to shoot it, it flew off. I followed this one and tried to shoot it too, but I couldn't manage to land a shot unfortunately. I wasn't going to give up so easily though, so I continued following around groups of amphitheres waiting for one to land, and eventually turned off the shaders and cranked up the render distance to try to make it easier to see them. I did find another one flying close to the ground, and it even landed close by, and I managed to shoot it and hit it, but when I came closer to try to mount it, all I saw were feathers, and I realized that the dragon bone bow was just too powerful, and this might not be possible with what I have right now. I continued following them around into day 47, but at this point it was really starting to look like a lost cause, and I was really regretting leaving my horse in the middle of the jungle. I did have a few more close encounters with them, but still wasn't able to get any. I thought about going back for the horse, and at one point started to, but I realized there was no way I was going to find it, so I just kept following the amphitheaters, hoping that at some point I would get lucky and hit one. I followed them into an area on the edge of a mesa and birch forest, which I figured would be a better place to try to hit them there than in the jungle, so in a last-ditch effort I just built up near one of them over a village and started shooting. And then I actually managed to hit one. I couldn't believe it. It survived and was now on the ground running away from me, so I chased after it. I was expecting this to be easy, but it actually ended up taking a long time, since it has a tiny bit of flight capability and can fly for very short bursts. This reminds me of that scene from How to Train Your Dragon where the guy shoots Toothless and then he can't fly well but can still kinda glide, so he's stuck in a pit. You know what I'm talking about, right? Well, this is what it felt like. I knew that eventually I would catch up to it, I just had to be persistent. So I continued chasing it for a while, and every time I managed to get close to it and thought I was about to mount it, it suddenly would quickly glide away. I wasn't giving up though, and eventually it ended up getting stuck under some trees, so I took the opportunity to climb onto its back and begin taming it. This was the part I was the most scared of, since I knew they were capable of doing lots of damage to get you off their back. But for some reason this one wasn't doing very much, and I seemed to be tanking and out healing its damage, and eventually after staying on it for long enough, it broke and began to recognize me as its master. I think I'll call it Constance. After that I turned my shaders back on so the game doesn't look like Dookie, and then decided to head to the Woodland Mansion. First though, I would need to learn how to fly the cockatrice. Luckily it was simple enough, and it works kinda similarly to an Elytra, but it's capable of sustained flight. Day 48, and I'm still looking for that Woodland Mansion, and while flying the amphitheater I noticed something odd. The sounds it makes. They kinda sound like that one meme sound effect, you know. Yeah. Well, I also ended up finding a village which had a scribe's house, so I went inside and decided to learn about the amphitheater I just tamed. In particular, I wanted to learn how to heal it since it was on low health from me, well, shooting it with an arrow. So I put a bestiary in the bestiary lectern with some manuscripts, unlocked the amphitheater pages, and read up about it. It said that by feeding it cookies I could breed it, but it said nothing about healing it, so I tried feeding it a few things like seeds and bread, but nothing worked. I even tested cookies in a creative world, and feeding it them just doesn't heal it either. It just puts it in love mode. Well, anyway, after that I just hopped back on Constance and got back on the road. Or, I guess the air. And I ended up finding another village almost immediately, this one having a Gorgon temple generating in it. I checked some of the chests, and then just flew off and found a desert temple nearby, looted it, not getting anything good unfortunately, and then got attacked by a deathworm when I came out. Once again, they're not dangerous, just annoying since they can go into the ground, making it impossible to hit them. Eventually I drove it out of the ground using water and then killed it in one hit. After that, I decided to give up on trying to find the Woodland Mansion since it was taking so long, and the dot on the map hasn't even gotten bigger yet. So I turned around, but when I passed the village with the Gorgon temple, I saw a sea serpent flopping around on the land. And this was when I found out just how OP the dragon bone bow was, because in just 2 shots it killed the sea serpent, giving me some sea serpent scales and fangs as loot. Also, just another little tip, as long as you're holding a looting sword in your main hand, the effect applies to anything you kill. So in this case, since I had the looting sword in my main hand and the bow in my offhand, even though I killed it with the bow, looting still applies since I had the looting sword in my main hand. This also works for if you shoot your bow or crossbow in your main hand then quickly switch to the sword before whatever you're fighting dies, and have the sword out for when it dies. Just figured I'd share that with you guys because I'm sure there are at least some of you that don't know that, and it's pretty helpful information. Also, I hold my sword like that sometimes when normally it wouldn't make sense to, so I also figured I'd just say this now to explain why I do that sometimes later. Anyways, I left Constance in the village, then went out on my own because I saw a dragon near the village and I didn't want to risk Constance dying. Although I did very much risk dying myself because when it first shot at me, I took a lot of damage with no shelter, and even had to eat a golden apple I got from a desert temple so that I don't get too low. I was about to start building the bunker, but then the dragon was right behind me, so I had no choice but to keep running and then dig into a mountain to try to slow the dragon down. It did shoot fire at me, but I'd managed to get just enough time to put some obsidian down to make a little safe haven to run to. I then dug up so that I could shoot at the dragon, but not many shots were hitting, so when the dragon started to lose interest, I dug a staircase going up to the surface, but then noticed that it was at the village, so I rushed to stop it from burning the village down and killing Constance. Luckily though, something else must have caught its attention since it left the village and flew off to my left. I decided to take this opportunity to sleep so I could see better, and then I got its attention on the morning of day 49 and retreated back to my safety hole. Shooting it from inside was pretty difficult, so I came up a bit and shot at it for a while until it eventually fell and I could harvest its bodies for some more red dragon scales, which I could now use to get myself a set of full dragon scale armor when I got home. I was still making my way home on day 50 when I came across something that caught my eye, a pillager raid outpost. This was great because it meant that I could get Bad Omen here, do a raid for totems, and then come back here even if I run out of totems. So I killed pillagers hoping to get a raid captain to spawn. On day 51, finally after killing countless pillagers, a raid captain spawned, so I killed him and got Bad Omen 1, but I wanted Bad Omen 2 since that adds one extra wave. Just another little tip, Bad Omen 2 is the most that's worth getting unless you're doing it for the hero of the village, since all that gets added with Bad Omen 3 and so on is that the raiders' weapons start to get enchanted and have a higher likelihood of being enchanted per level of Bad Omen. So if you're doing it just for the totems, there's no point in getting more than Bad Omen 2. Eventually I killed the second raid captain, so now I had Bad Omen 2, so I flew back home, killing a Cyclops on the way with this OP Dragon Bone Bow Amphitheater combo, and then made it back home safe and— wait, is that an ice dragon? Fly, Constance, fly! Eventually though, I'd managed to lose it by flying through the jungle, and on my way home I didn't encounter any more— oh my god, that's a fire dragon. It followed me for a while, and I was getting concerned that it would follow me all the way home, so I flew up high above the clouds, and eventually I lost it there. I made it back home on day 52 and started the raid and made some dragon scale armor to keep me safe, which I enchanted halfway into the raid. But you guys already saw me do a raid, so I'll just skip to the end. It continued into day 53 and I did have a few close calls, but once I had totems it was really nothing to worry about. And on the morning of day 54 I finished the raid, and we lost all our villagers except for one. Okay, so maybe not an ideal outcome, but at least I'm still alive. And I got a ton of totems. No way I'm gonna end up using all these totems in this 100 days. My dragon scale armor ended up taking a ton of damage from the raid unfortunately, and I don't have a way of getting mending books yet, so I'm a little reluctant to use it after this. I put flame on my dragon bone bow and gave it an amazing name, Dragon. I know guys, I'm a genius. Combined my pick with an efficiency 4 book to get it to efficiency 5, and then made a lectern so I could get a mending villager. Unfortunately, as I said, all the villagers in the village died apart from the armorer, so I'm gonna have to go to another village for this. I started re-rolling librarian villagers to try to get a mending trade, but it was taking a while. This continued into day 55, and a villager sold me Prot 4, so even though it wasn't what I was after, I went for this since Prot can be annoying to get when enchanting, so I was happy even though I still didn't get a mending trade that day. Still trying for mending on day 56, and even though it wasn't mending, I was very happy to see that the first trade I got was on breaking 3 for 17 emeralds, 11 after the discount. So I got that and then had to fly to another village to try to get a mending villager since I used all the villagers from the first one. I flew to the village where I killed my first dragon and there were some villagers left, so I got a villager trapped in a house and then refreshed his trades until finally he was trading me mending for 12 emeralds, 8 after the discount. It did take a long time, but I finally got it, and for really cheap too. I needed more emeralds to trade with him though, so I went out and made another villager, a Fletcher, and then chopped down trees to trade sticks to him. But as I was getting wood, I was attacked by a cockatrice, and Constance rushed in to try to protect me, but unfortunately, since she was already really hurt from when I tamed her and I wasn't able to heal her, she died to the cockatrice. This was very disappointing, but there really wasn't much I could do, since if I tried to shoot the cockatrice more, I would have probably hit Constance because of the nausea effect it causes. It may not seem like I had Constance for very long, but when I was playing it actually felt like I had her for a really long time, so I was very sad to see her die. On the bright side though, I did have an idea for how to get back in the air, so I avenged Constance, got some mending books, and then ran home on day 57. On my way home I saw a massive sea serpent close to the shore, so I shot it to get its attention and then continued shooting at it until it finally died. Since it was so big and I had my looting sword out when it died, it ended up dropping 28 scales, which is more than enough for a full set of Tide Guardian armor, so I'll remember that in case I ever need to make some in the future. I also killed a deathworm on my way and got an egg from it, which I can use to hatch my own deathworm in the future. My plan right now is to tame a hippogriff. I already had 4 rabbit's feet, but I wanted to get 5 just to be safe, so I spent the rest of days 57 and 58 hunting rabbits to get more feet. I started out day 59 hunting rabbits, but I was having bad luck with the foot drops and got sick of doing it, so I decided to go to the swamp and see if I could find a hydra. Hydras are snake-like creatures in this mod that have 3 heads and grow more whenever you damage them unless they're lit on fire. And I want to kill them because they can drop their heart upon death, which when in your hotbar gives you regen, stamina, which becomes stronger the lower your health is. Unfortunately though, the swamp near my house wasn't very big, so after finding nothing, I just went home, dropped off some stuff in the chests, and then went to sleep. I was back at it hunting rabbits on day 60, and I finally got lucky and got a 5th rabbit's foot, so I finally had an amount I was comfortable enough with to use to tame a hippogriff. In case you're wondering why 5 specifically, I went into creative mode and fed probably like 10 hippogriffs, and the most feet any of them took was 5. So I searched for a while trying to find a hippogriff that was in a nice flat area so that I wouldn't mess up the tame, and eventually found one by the swamp. So I waited for it to land, ran up to it, and then fed it the feet. Wait, what? You saw that, right? The first foot just disappeared. This worried me. I fed it the rest of the feet, and it wasn't enough since the first one didn't count and just disappeared. This game has given me a lot of crap throughout the last 60 days, but this has to be the worst, most annoying, biggest setback I've had. And there was nothing I could have done to prevent it from just disappearing. Sure, I could have gotten more feet, but it took me 60 days of killing every rabbit I saw to get 5, so who knows how long that would have taken. I figured that there might still be a chance though, so I went out and killed more rabbits and actually got lucky and got a foot from them, and then came back to the hippogriff on day 61 and fed it the foot, but unfortunately it wasn't enough. At this point I had had enough, and this dumb setback pushed me over my limit. I decided I was gonna get a flying mount one way or the other, so I resolved to do something that I wasn't too proud of, but also given the circumstances didn't feel that bad about either. What I was going to do was use a spectator camera mod to find an underground dragon den to find and kill a dragon to get an egg. The way the mod works is you press a button that allows your camera to go into spectator mode and look around, but your character is still in the world, so you can't use it to escape from danger. Yes, it is kinda cheaty to use it to find dragon dens underground, but at the time I was thinking that first of all the game cheated me, so I deserved this, and second, finding underground dragon dens in this mod is really hard, and would take a huge amount of this 100 days to do, and I wanted to have time left for other things. I mean, if I could even do it at all. In hindsight, one thing I could have done to make it easier that isn't too cheaty is installing a minimap mod, so that while underground I can see if there's any dragon dens near me, but I can't just see through the entire world. Either way, I hope you guys don't see this as too cheaty, and if you do, don't worry, I'll definitely be uninstalling this mod. Even with the mod, I had to run around for a while to find a den. I spent the rest of day 61 and day 62 looking for a den, but on day 63 I spotted something else I was looking for, a hydra's lair. I began to shoot at the hydra with my flame bow, which set it on fire, but for whatever reason, it eventually stopped setting it on fire, so there was really no way I could have killed it, so I just continued on my way. Eventually, on day 64, I found a dragon lair using the spectator cam, so the first thing I did was safely put my horse in a hole and then dig down to the dragon's lair. I tried to get lower to set up my obsidian bunker, but when I got down to where I wanted to be, I noticed that the dragon had woken up, so I quickly scrambled to set up my bunker, being shot at by the dragon before I could finish setting it up, but luckily managing to finish it before taking any damage. The dragon was trying to shoot fire at me, but it was too high to hit me in my bunker, so I took advantage of the opportunity and began shooting at its feet while it just stayed still, trying to burn me, but unable to thanks to the bunker. This fight ended up being incredibly easy, and it just stayed there, so after shooting at it for a bit, it went down. Not gonna lie, a pretty underwhelming first large dragon fight. I won't complain about an easy dragon kill though. I put out the fire around it to make sure none of the drops burned, and then after being interrupted by a creeper, I began to loot its body, and not only did I get a ton of scales, but I also got my first dragon egg. This was huge. Forget hippogriffs, I'm gonna be flying on a dragon. So after quickly checking the chests for any loot and mining some of the diamonds in the dragon's lair, I dug back up to the surface. I hopped back on my horse on day 65 and headed straight home to hatch the dragon, passing the graveyard where I wasted 3 days trying to get a phantasmal ingot that had a 0% chance of dropping, and then finally making it back home on day 66. Using all of the new manuscripts I got, I finally completed my bestiary, and then I went outside and made an area to hatch my dragon, and then lit the ground on fire to begin the hatching process. While I waited for it to hatch, I just harvested some sugarcane, and then eventually it hatched and I had my very own baby dragon. It was a gray female dragon, which at this size was very cute, however I knew that eventually this dragon was going to be a menacing behemoth. I decided to call her Burnout because of her gray color, and since she was a fire dragon. I don't know if it's a very good name, but I'm happy with it. Since I didn't want Burnout roaming around and getting lost, I took 2 sticks and her mother's skull and made a dragon staff and ordered her to stay, and then I crafted up some dragon meal to age her up. Since 2/3 of the 100 days is already done, I decided that I'd like to waste no time and ride Burnout as soon as possible, so I dedicated the next few days to hunting animals during the day and skeletons at night in order to get the materials needed to craft more dragon meal. I decided one thing that would help in the the long run is an AFK chicken farm, so on day 67 I took some chests and hoppers and set one up outside of my house. And then I began breeding the cows that were in the village pen so that they could multiply over time as well. However, if I wanted to get this done soon, I was going to have to do more than just farming and waiting, so I went out and hunted every animal I saw. On top of all the meat it takes, I was also going to need a lot of bones to make dragon meal, so on day 68 I went to the nether to try to hunt skeletons in a nearby soul sand valley, but I wasn't finding very many, so I decided to just wait until night and hunt them in the overworld. I did the same thing for days 69, 70, and 71, however I also made a dragon bone shovel and enchanted it with efficiency 4 and unbreaking 3 on day 71. I also had 3 rabbit's feet and found a hippogriff in the village, so I fed it the feet, but it didn't want to be my friend, so I showed it how I felt. After that display of sadness, I did the math and calculated that I only needed 60 more bones in order to get burnout to be big enough for me to fly on. Unfortunately though, I had only been averaging 30 to 40 bones a night, so if I wanted to get burnout old enough to fly on by day 72, I was going to need to kill a ton of skeletons this night. And that was exactly what I did! I went on a skeleton murder spree and got a total of 63 bones, enough to make 12 dragon meal and age burnout enough to where I can ride her. On the morning of day 72, I crafted up all the dragon meal and fed it to burnout until I could ride her, which was a mistake because the moment I jumped on her, she destroyed the front half of my house. But I didn't care because I finally have a dragon I can ride. I flew around for a bit, testing her out and shooting fire, and then coming back down and crafting a dragon horn, which is a very useful item that you can use to store dragons so that you don't have to have them out all the time taking up space. I used the dragon horn to take burnout into the nether so that I could find a nether fortress. Unfortunately though, instead of finding a nether fortress, I ended up finding a ton of bastions. Although normally I love looting bastions, it's not really worth it in this situation, and all I really want is a nether fortress. I continued searching into day 73 but still had no luck, so eventually I decided to turn around and go back home. But as I was on my way back, I found a nether fortress, so I went in and explored it, getting plenty of blaze rods in case I need them in the future to brew potions or to go to the end, and then went back home and went to sleep. On day 74, I gathered the materials for a fermented spider eye, set up a brewing stand, and then brewed some potions of weakness because I wanted to try to get a zombie villager and cure it so that I could have more villagers in the village again since all but one died in a raid. I brewed up some weakness potions, made them splash potions, and then connected up 2 villager houses so that I'd have a larger enclosed space to breed the villagers in once I get a second one. That night I brewed up some night vision potions and then got on burnout to kill mobs, hoping that a zombie villager will spawn. When a zombie spawns, it has a 5% chance of being a zombie villager, so you would think that this shouldn't take that long then, but actually it ends up taking the entire night and no zombie villagers spawned. At the time I didn't realize that I could just make a chain and bring a villager from another village to breed with the villager I have here. I mean, I knew you could do that, but they changed the chain recipe and I thought it wasn't possible to craft them anymore since the recipe shows up as nothing in the bestiary and Google kept showing me the old recipe. In case anyone else here is having the same problem, the new recipe is 3 vanilla Minecraft chains going from top to bottom in the crafting table. That way you all don't have to go through what I did. Chain problems aside, on day 75 I crafted some fire dragon forge bricks out of dragon scale blocks and stone bricks to try to make a dragon forge later on, which is basically like a big furnace you need to build in order to make dragon steel, which is the best tier of weapons and armor in this mod. With the sword able to do 25 damage in one hit, it's really OP, but it's also really hard to get since you need hundreds of dragon scales in order to craft up all the blocks needed to build the entire thing, and after that you need to get dragon blood to combine with iron to make the ingots themselves. It's really difficult, and at this point it's my main goal moving forward, so hopefully I can get it done before day 100. I set out to try to find more dragons to kill for their scales, but before I found any dragons, I found a massive deathworm, and when I killed it, it dropped 5 deathworm eggs. Very cool, but also a lot more eggs than I see myself ever needing. The only other thing I fought on this adventure was some sirens. And then I came back home on day 76 and enchanted a dragon bone sword with sharpness 4 and ended up also getting unbreaking 3 and knockback 2, which is pretty good, but unfortunately I almost immediately lost those enchantments on it because for whatever reason combining a dragon bone sword with dragon blood works differently than combining it with a phantasmal ingot, as when you combine it with the ingot it keeps its enchantments, but when you combine it with dragon blood it loses the enchantments. I guess it's because you do it in the crafting table or in your inventory, but I still think that it's really stupid and should be changed because it really doesn't make any sense. On the bright side, I don't end up using that sword much, so at least it wasn't too important. Later on, I flew burnout over a swamp and got attacked by a Stymphalian bird, which fly away when a player kills a member of their flock flock, but for whatever reason, they don't fly away when a dragon kills a member of their flock, so they just kept on coming until eventually burnout got really low and we had to retreat. I healed her a bit after feeding her some of my food, but I didn't have enough to heal her that much, so I'll have to be more careful. I ended up back at the Hydra's lair in the swamp, and on day 77 I got out my new fire dragon bone sword, which has no enchantments now, and fought it because I guess the bow was bugged and only set it on fire sometimes, so it would always just end up out healing my shots. I'll save you all a lot of time and just tell you now, I couldn't kill it there. It was just too frustrating because it went in the water and then just wouldn't go back on land, so it would always just heal since I couldn't light it on fire. To make it even more frustrating, its attacks can hit you through walls. Not sure if this is a bug or intentional, but it's super annoying. I tried to lead it to the land, but it wouldn't follow me, and eventually I just got fed up with it and just hopped back on burnout on day 78 and started shooting fire at the Hydra. Now it was finally following me onto land, so I took the opportunity to go in with the flame sword and attack since it won't be constantly healing now, but since I barely had any armor left at this point, I couldn't really fight it like this, so I just got back on burnout and flew away. Eventually, using my little spectator cam, I found another underground dragon lair and I dug down to it, built up a little obsidian bunker inside, slept, and then began shooting at it on day 79. This time, things went much differently. Last time I just shot at it for a bit while it stood still and died. This time though, it didn't go quite as smoothly. It got right above my bunker, so I stepped out a bit to shoot it, but then it hit me and knocked me down to the ground, getting me low and then popping my first totem with another hit. I then scrambled to get my second totem in my hand, which it popped too almost immediately after. At this point things were looking bad and my armor was just diamond and about to break. I was on super low health, and I was out of totems and in the open where the dragon has no problem hitting me. I tried to get some distance, but it continued to berate me with flames, so I dug down to escape them, with only half a heart left and a baby zombie right behind me, and then ended up digging into lava, which saved me from the baby zombie and didn't hurt me because of the fire resistance from the totems. The fire res only lasts so long though, so I have to get out of the lava quickly before it kills me, so I dug in the wall and blocked myself in with obsidian, just in time too, because as the fire res ran out I began taking damage from the fire, but managed to put myself out with a bucket of water. At this point I wasn't sure what to do. Do I go back up and fight, risking it all, or do I go back home and lick my wounds and not get the massive amount of scales this dragon would give me that I need for the dragon forge? I decided I wanted to finish the fight, but not before going back home and getting more totems and armor. After gearing back up, I came back to the dragon's lair on day 80 and saw it sitting on the ground, and then got to my bunker and got ready to shoot it with my bow when I realized it was gone. At first I thought I dropped it, but when I looked back at the footage to see what happened, it turned out that it actually glitched out of my inventory when one of my totems went off and just disappeared. I know I didn't drop it because first of all, I didn't see it fall anywhere, and second, it disappears at the exact moment my totem pops. Definitely disappointing and very frustrating, but on the bright side, I did have a crossbow with me and some arrows, so I could shoot at it with those to get its attention, so I got a bit lower so that I could hit it, and then after firing off a shot which hit, I scrambled back up to the bunker before it could grab me and end my life. Unfortunately though, it didn't react as expected. Instead of coming towards me, it flew up even more out of range of my shots. I went up to the surface to find it, but when I went up I saw it was still in the cave, just out of its lair. So I built another bunker on the surface, and by the time I finished it had gotten out of the cave and was wreaking havoc on the surface. I shot at it from nearby my bunker to get its attention, but it seemed to just not care, so I went to sleep and then continued firing at it on day 81. However, now it definitely cared. It came straight towards me, so I ran to my bunker and hid inside, and because I wasn't even wearing full diamond armor anymore, even just a tiny bit of fire breath did a ton of damage to me, so I was gonna have to be really careful. Just what happened with the first dragon I fought, my water disappeared here too, so I couldn't put myself out whenever I caught on fire, so I need to heal whenever I can. Once again, the dragon lost interest, so I had to shoot at it again to get its attention. Eventually it came over, but because of how big it is, I'm not able to hit it with my sword from inside my bunker unless I'm on a higher level than it, so all I can do now is throw these phantom swords at it. Finally though, it came in at the perfect angle and I was able to hit it and deal the finishing blow. This fight took forever and was by far the closest I've come to death in this entire 100 days. I actually couldn't even get out because of the corpse's hitbox, so I had to dig out to harvest it. I made sure to put out the fire first so none of the items burned, and then I prepared for the amazing loot it would give me since it's a stage 4 female dragon. And it gave me 21 scales and no egg. That is phenomenally bad. All that for 21 scales? I got that much from a stage 3 earlier on. I guess I'll just have to kill a ton more dragons. After getting cheated by that loot, I went down to check if the chests had anything good, and all that was really worth taking that was there was some bones and obsidian. When I got back home on day 82, I hatched some rotten eggs I got from my chicken farm, and the first one ended up hatching into a cockatrice, so that's pretty cool. As babies, they're really cute. I almost don't want it to grow up. Anyway, because of the disappearing bow BS that happened when fighting the last dragon, I was gonna need to enchant another dragon bone bow. So I enchanted one with flame and got power 3, infinity, and flame. Added power 5 to it by combining 2 power 4 books and then adding them onto the bow, and then wanted to combine that one with another dragon bone bow that had punch 2 and unbreaking 3 on it, but I didn't have the levels for it, so I spent the rest of day 82 and some of day 83 doing the best method of getting XP. Mining nether quartz. When I finally got level 19, I went back, went to sleep, and then woke up on day 84 and combined the 2 bows and gave them the amazing name, Dragon. I also made a bit more dragon meal to feed Burnout, so now she was 61 days old. Later on, I mined up those diamonds I left in the strip mine a while ago since I was considering using them to make dragon armor at the time, and then went out to try to find more dragons to kill for scales. And after a little while, I came across an empty dragon nest, which was from a green dragon that chased me and Constance around until we flew into the clouds and lost it. Poor Constance. Rest in peace. You were irreplaceable. Well, at least I thought so until day 85 when I found an amphitheater sitting on a tree and thought, I should tame this thing that I have absolutely no use for now that I have a dragon. Remember when I tamed Constance and I said that she did basically no damage? Well, I don't know why, but when I got on this one's back, it did a lot more damage than Constance did, and it also attacked me after I shot it instead of flying away like Constance did. Not sure why that is, but when I saw how much damage it was doing, I was getting concerned. I was starting to think that maybe 2 totems won't be enough, and very quickly it popped my first totem, so I prepared my second one, and not long after that it popped my second one, and I realized something. Oh my god, I'm gonna die like this. I made a last-ditch attempt to save my life though by jumping off and water bucket clutching to save myself from fall damage, and then I dug a hole to hide from it and heal up. I'm not sure how, but somehow I actually managed to survive that. Completely unreal. Also really stupid on my part. After healing to full health, I came out of the hole and saw the amphitheater, and although it wasn't attacking me anymore, I didn't want to risk it sneaking up on me, so I shot it and then saw in the chat that I actually tamed it, so I just killed my own tame. Well, that sucks. Even after all that though, it still wasn't over. 2 cockatrices began to attack me, so I looked away, allowing them to get close, and quickly took care of one, but not wanting to risk death since I didn't have a totem, I ran away and got out Burnout to kill the second one. After all that, I eventually made my way home, and then before going to bed, I took a giant deathworm egg I had in the chest and hatched it. When these things get bigger, you're actually able to ride them, but they're pretty slow, so it's not really worth it. On day 86, I came across a small fire dragon, so I got my bow out and shot it from on top of Burnout until finally it died. So I went down and looted its body, but because the game hates me, it only gave me 2 scales. After that, I found a Cyclops lair, so I put away Burnout and then took out my bow. These Cyclops lairs don't usually have much good loot inside of them, but they do have a lot of mutton, so at least I can use that to make dragon meal. Remember what I said earlier about never needing to get totems again? And I got a ton of totems. No way I'm gonna end up using all these totems in this 100 days. Well, I ran out of totems, so on day 87, I tried to find that first pillager outpost I was at a while back, but I couldn't find it. Luckily though, I ended up running into another one. I spent a while killing pillagers to try to get Bad Omen 2, but after not getting much luck with finding a second raid captain, I just decided that Bad Omen 1 was enough. So I made another portal to make getting here easier in the future. And then I went through it on day 88 and the raid started. When I went downstairs though, I saw that my house had no front, so I quickly replaced it with netherrack, and then secured the armor so that I couldn't lose the raid. After that, I went to sleep and then woke up on day 89 and started fighting the raid. The first wave was pretty easy. Unfortunately though, my deathworm came out to say hi, and I shot it, mistaking it for a wild deathworm. I realized as I was shooting it that it was my deathworm, which made it hurt all the more, but after killing another one of my tames with my bow, I continued on with the raid. But since you guys have already seen me fight raids, I'll just skip to the end since nothing really interesting happens during it. Eventually the last raider was killed, and on day 90 I got 5 totems and Hero of the Village. So I decided to take advantage of this and sold paper to villagers and bought some mending and unbreaking books, and then the stonkage continued into days 91 and 92 until eventually I had more mending and unbreaking books than I knew what to do with. As I was flying back home though, I noticed a lightning dragon perched high up in a mountain, so I decided to take it on since this was the first one I'd seen. I fought it on Burnout's back, shooting it to keep it at bay and do lots of damage, but as it hit me I realized I was out of food and I couldn't heal, so I had to be extra careful. Eventually though, I did manage to shoot it out of the sky, but because I'm so careless, instead of finding food to heal, I just went down and then suffocated in the mountain and popped a totem. I wish I could say it was the first time I did something that stupid, but it actually isn't. The first time I did this was when I was traveling back from the Nether Fortress and I kept hitting my head on the Nether roof flying back home, and I was too lazy to stop and get food and heal, so I just let my totem pop. I know, I'm very good at this whole surviving thing. After that, I harvested from the lightning dragon's spastic twitching corpse and then flew back home. On day 93, I got together some of the fire dragon forge bricks I got and began placing them down to build the dragon forge. Unfortunately though, I didn't even have close to enough scales to make it, so I was gonna have to kill some more dragons, so that was exactly what I did. I went out and found another underground fire dragon lair using the spectator cam mod and then began digging down to face it. Once in, I set up my obsidian bunker and then began shooting at it. At one point, the dragon got close enough to hit me and did 4.5 hearts because the armor I have on now is really bad, which is extremely scary, so I'm gonna have to be careful because even with totems, it could kill me fairly quickly. And when I tried to heal off the damage, it ended up hitting me again and popped my first totem, and then 2 more times, popping my second totem. I guess I didn't set this bunker up too well because it was easily able to hit me inside, so I covered up the bunker and then got my last totem in hand, trying to think of what to do now. I decided to expand the bunker since I had some extra obsidian and clearly this one wasn't big enough, and then after that shot it some more until eventually it landed right on top of my bunker, just out of the range where I could safely shoot it with my bow. So I poked out of the bunker a bit, completely terrified to do so with armor this weak and only 1 totem left, and then shot it, but it barely moved, so I took advantage of my position and dug another hole in the bunker and started shooting it from right below, and after only a few more shots, it went down. Definitely a costly victory considering how many totems it took, but after looting the body and getting over a stack of scales and 2 dragon eggs, I'd say it was definitely worth it. Because I was in such a rush to get the dragon forged before day 100, I didn't even bother to loot the chests in the dragon's lair, and just went to the surface to find more dragons to kill. As I was searching for more dragons on day 94, I again came across the annoying Hydra that irks me so much in the past, but instead of trying to use weapons again, I just lit it up using burnout, and then when it was really low I finished it off with my bow. Unfortunately it didn't drop its heart, but I did get 5 Hydra fangs, which can be used to make arrows that leech life from your opponents, so that's pretty cool at least. Mainly though, I was just glad to have killed this annoyance. Since my inventory was super full, I stopped back at home to drop off some stuff on day 95, and while there I used all the dragon scales I got from the last dragon fight to make some more dragon forge bricks, which I could craft into a dragon forge fire core by surrounding a fire dragon heart with them. Unfortunately though, making that did take all my dragon scales. See what I mean when I say this thing is really expensive? So I took the core and added it to the dragon forge, and then after searching for another dragon to kill, I found one after a little while and attempted to kill it with burnout and my bow. However, this didn't go too well, and it got me very low before I could even hit it once, so I had to retreat and heal, and then went back in and took it down with a few shots. I harvested it and got 19 scales, which isn't bad for a stage 3 dragon, but I'm gonna need a lot more for that dragon forge. On day 96, I found another dragon lair underground near a village using the spectator cam mod. Don't worry, this is the last time I use it, and then I dug down to try to kill it. This time though, I have a lot less obsidian to work with, and I don't want to go to get more since I don't have much time left, so I'm gonna have to be smart about how I built my bunker. I get down to the dragon's lair and build a cheap bunker that will hopefully keep me safe, and then fire off the first shot at the dragon. It wakes up and comes straight to me, and I manage to hit a ton of shots with it right in front of me, but then it manages to hit me and take out more than half my health with a single hit. So I retreat to the back of the bunker and heal, which luckily does keep me safe despite having a hole in it. So after trying to get at me for a little while, the dragon flies away, and once I heal, I try to get some more shots on it, but it was nowhere to be seen, and once I saw the sunlight coming through the cave, I knew it had made its way up to the surface to massacre the village nearby. Once I made sure the dragon wasn't going to come back and I was safe, I began tearing down my bunker and then cleared out some mobs in my way before going up. But as I was going up, a creeper came up, but luckily I managed to kill it before it exploded. But there was another one right next to me that I didn't notice because of the first one, which then exploded and popped my totem, leaving me with only 2 totems left. While scrambling to heal, I got shot by a skeleton, which broke my helmet, so now I was pretty vulnerable, so I got my totem in hand and blocked myself into the wall. And on day 97, I made my way up to the surface and immediately began constructing my bunker. I messed up placing the first block, but luckily the dragon was distracted by something, so I had time to fix my mistake and get the bunker fully built up. It does have an extra hole in it, but I should be safe as long as I'm not standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. So I began shooting at the dragon to get its attention, but it was just out of reach and I think it was glitched because it just kept shooting fire at nothing, and when I moved closer it flew a bit farther and just ended up moving out of render distance and disappearing. I moved closer so it would render back in, but when it reappeared it just stayed like it was before. Once I got closer again, it just moved a bit and went out of render again, and at this point I knew that the only way to get it to come to me would be to get much closer to it, and in the process much farther from from the safety of my bunker. I decided the best way to do this would be to fly over on Burnout and get its attention, but I knew this would be difficult since I would risk both my life and Burnout's while trying to dismount Burnout, get her back in the dragon horn, and get back inside the bunker with a giant stage 5 dragon right behind me. So I got on Burnout, got close enough for the dragon to follow me, and then made a break for it. When I looked behind, I noticed that it wasn't following me anymore, but then when I went back to get its attention again, I was immediately met with a wave of fire blown at me by the dragon, so I hurried back to the bunker as fast as I could, but the dragon managed to cut me off from the bunker, so now I had no choice but to fly around and try not to die while a giant dragon chases me, spewing fire at me with no end to its assault in sight. Every time I'd look back, all I would see is this giant dragon right behind me, and I'd just have to keep going. I tried to lose the dragon a few times by flying over the village hoping it would get distracted by them and give me enough time to get back to the bunker, but when I landed to try to get into the bunker, it landed right behind me and hit me once, almost one-shotting me and popping another totem. Eventually though, after flying around to heal a bit more, it lost interest, so I went to see if it was safe to go in the bunker, but it was right outside of the bunker waiting for me and immediately hit me with a fireball, so I had to retreat and heal again. After being chased by it again for a while though, I managed to lose it by flying by some animals, so I got off Burnout next to the bunker and put her away, and then began firing at the dragon from the entrance of the bunker. I hit it a few times, and then noticed that it wasn't doing anything. I guess it bugs out when it's aggroed on something near render distance, and then whatever it was attacking goes out of render? Not sure, but I definitely don't mind using it to my advantage, so I pelted it with arrows until I had hit it so much that it was knocked out of range of my bow. I hit it a ton, so I knew it had to be low since the Power 5 Dragon Bone bows do a stupidly high amount of damage, so I got a bit closer to get its attention, and then I retreated to the bunker, and once I had it close I took out the Phantasmal Blade and began trying to swipe at the dragon. Unfortunately though, as usual this doesn't work very well against large dragons, so I switched up tactics and began shooting at it with my bow whenever it got close to the entrance. At this point it was just running around my bunker in circles, so I knew eventually I would have an opportunity to hit it again, or so I thought, because as usual it lost interest and went off to attack something else. So once again I stepped out of the bunker to shoot at it to get its attention and do some damage where I can. After a while though, it seemed to have gotten dark and the dragon flew off to go to sleep, and I realized this is a great opportunity for me to get some more shots on it. So I shot at it a bunch while it was asleep and making its way back over to me, and I knew that at this point it had to be low, so I took some shots at it from inside my bunker, and once it flew off to try to go to sleep again, I took one final shot at it and watched it fall. I was super excited to have finally killed it, and possibly even get enough scales to finish making my dragon forge, but I was tired too, so I went to bed before doing anything else. I woke up nice and refreshed on day 98 and immediately went over to the dragon corpse to harvest its scales. I harvested it and got a total of 58 scales, which from doing the math beforehand I knew was enough to finish my dragon forge. So even though it actually isn't that much from a stage 5 dragon, I was still really hyped about it, especially since the last large dragon only gave me 21 scales. After that I went home and got together all the materials I would need to craft some dragon forge bricks, but after getting it all together I realized I was short 2 scales. Ouch. Luckily though, I still have 2 days left, so if I can find just one green fire dragon, I can get all the scales I need for the forge. And after searching for an unbelievably long time, eventually I found a stage 3 green fire dragon, so I slept through the night, and on the morning of day 99 I engaged the enemy. I fought tons of dragons, many of which are much bigger than this one, so this one should be no problem. Oh my god, I'm in its mouth. In a fraction of a second, I went from cool, calm, and collected to panicking and having no idea what was going on. I got out of the dragon's mouth, but because of how high up we were, I fell and took so much fall damage that it popped my totem, so I rushed to get my last totem in hand, and then tried to escape the dragon. It kept following right behind me, so I realized the only way I'm gonna escape for now is by digging down and hiding in a hole. The entire time though, there was one huge concern on my mind: Burnout. She was still up there alone and commanded to stay, so she won't fight back even if attacked, and she didn't come to the ground with me since I was grabbed by the dragon and didn't dismount Burnout myself. I knew I would have to act fast, not just to get the dragon forge and not just to save myself, but to save Burnout. So I ate some food to regen, and then dug up to the surface until I saw the green wings that nearly just ended my life. I dug out a little more until I was forced out by some falling sand, so I manned up, fired at the dragon, and then immediately ran back to cover when it fired back. After putting myself out though, I pulled my bow back and fired at the dragon, and then found out that it was one shot from death the whole time. Well, at least it's dead. Before harvesting the corpse though, I made sure Burnout was safe, and fortunately I was able to find her flying safely in the sky. So, I towered up, got on Burnout, and then came down to harvest the dragon. I needed 2 more scales to make the last crafted dragon scale blocks, so once I got them I harvested the rest of the dragon with bottles to get fire dragon blood to use to make the dragon steel. Then I hopped on Burnout and rushed home to get the dragon forge made before day 100. I crafted up the final dragon scale block, used it to make the fire dragon forge bricks, and then crafted a fire dragon forge aperture. This was it, the final component I needed to make my dragon forge and finally get dragon steel, and not a moment too soon with the sun setting on day 99. So I placed in the aperture, and then put in the bricks one by one, and I'm 1 short. Well, that's a massive kick in the nuts. Unfortunately, Dragon Forge bricks can only be crafted 4 at a time, and in total you need 25, which is 1 more than 24, a multiple of 4. Starting to see what I'm getting at? So yes, the crafting recipe is a little annoying, and yes, it looks like I won't be getting Dragon Steel in this 100 days. But that doesn't mean it's the end. I had a ton of fun playing through this 100 days, and I'd definitely be down to do 200 days in the future, and considering how much of the Dragon Forge is done now, I think I can manage to finish it in 200 days. So instead of sitting and skulking about my failures and shortcomings, I think instead I'll go to bed and then wake up and enjoy day 100. Here it is, day 100. Finally, after 99 days of hard work, here we are. Although I may not have accomplished everything I set out to do before day 100, that doesn't mean I'm gonna do nothing. So I took out my 2 extra fire dragon eggs and began to hatch them, and while I waited for them to hatch, I also hatched a deathworm and giant deathworm egg. I got everyone together for the new baby dragons to hatch, and while I waited I studied up on the bestiary, because why not? And then they finally hatched. From the 2 eggs I got a red male fire dragon and another female gray fire dragon. Very cool. Now that I've done all that though, I think it's time for you guys to get to have your influence on the world. So, what do you think I should name these 2 dragons, as well as the 2 deathworms and the cockatrice? Leave your suggestions in the comments and I'll pick them for the names, since my names are usually terrible, and the best I'll probably come up with is something like Bernie for the male or something, I don't know. Now that this 100 days is over and I have everyone together, I think before ending off the video this would be a good time to thank you all so much for the support you've shown me on my last 100 days, and on all my videos in general. My last 100 days has over 20,000 views at this point, and as I said in the beginning of the video, it's more than tripled my subscriber count, so thank you guys so much, and if you enjoyed the video, would like to see more videos like this, and hey, maybe a 200 days of this mod eventually, please consider subscribing. It helps me out a ton and it really motivates me to keep on making these videos, which can be really tough sometimes since 100 days video in particular take a ton of time and effort to make. Even just watching these videos helps me though, so I hope that you all enjoyed the video, and I hope that you have a good day.